Good afternoon, children. Welcome to your I Learn English Literature class. Today we'll be doing a new lesson which is Marooned on an Island, chapter number 17 on page number 153 of your textbook. Marooned on an Island is is an extract from the novel Lord of the Flies, written by William Golding. Sir William Golding. He was a British novelist and he has written a novel, Lord of the Flies, which was extremely popular. And this extract has been taken from his book. Now, this book is about a few boys, young boys, who were not exactly kids and they were not adults. They were in between, somewhere between just before teenage. So these group of boys have been marooned, means isolated on an island. Okay, they have happened to be on this island because there was a war going on, and during the war these children were belonged to the same school, and these children were being evacuated means being rescued from a war prone area in a school. The school was situated in an area where a war was going on and these boys had to be rescued. So they were taken in an airplane and they were going to be taken to a safe place. But instead of that, because of an accident or because maybe the plane in which these boys were going, the enemy saw the plane and they must have shot it, and this plane was wrecked. So that the plane met with a crash, and these boys, all of them, although they were scattered in different places on the island, but they were all they managed to be alive. Okay, they were all alive and they were all scattered all over this island. But the pilot most probably had died. So on this island now, there were no grown-ups. All of them, these small adolescent boys about to become teenagers, so they were all alone on this island with no grown-ups to look after them, with no grown-ups to give them any sort of advice on how to come out of this place, how to get out of the place. They had no one. So this book is all about how these boys, so, if you are on an island, you need a leader. You need someone who will tell you what rules are to be followed. So, similarly, like tribes, the tribes live on different islands, but they also have a leader. They also have some rules which they have to follow. If you don't have any rules, anyone will do anything. Okay. So they tried to set up a system since they now realized that they were all alone with no grown-ups to look after them. They had to set up their own system to look after themselves, to feed themselves, to govern themselves. So this is a story about how these boys happened to be on this island and how they like governed themselves, how they looked after themselves. Okay, so who took over charge of what? This is the story, and how they were finally rescued will not be mentioned on this particular chapter, but if you read the novel. Okay, so we will begin. Sir William Gerald Golding was a British novelist, playwright, and poet. In 1954, after 21 rejections, Golding published his first and most acclaimed novel, Lord of the Flies. So 21 times his books were rejected. So William Golding's books were rejected 21 times, and finally he managed to publish this particular novel called The Lord of the Flies. Acclaimed means highly praised, highly popular. Okay, acclaimed. The novel told the gripping story of a group of adolescent boys stranded on a deserted island after a plane wreck and their attempts to govern themselves. Like I told you, it's a gripping story, means engaging, very involving, gripping, engaging story. Group of adolescent boys. Adolescent means no longer a child nor an adult, no longer a child nor an adult, somewhere in between. Stranded means left around on a shore, left aground, left Aground, Aground, on a shore, shore, shore. Deserted means isolated with no people on it. There was no civilization on that particular island, with no people, deserted, absolutely isolated island. Plane wreck means plane crash, a damaged plane, and their attempts to govern themselves means to look after themselves. How to look after themselves? This story is about a group of young boys who happened to be stranded together on this marooned, stranded together on a particular island where there was no one to look after these boys, and they had to look after themselves on their own. And how do they do it? This is the story. Riddled with symbolism, the book set the tone for Golding's future work, in which he continued to examine man's internal struggle between good and evil. So, this particular book was riddled with symbolism, means there were a lot of hidden meanings, use of symbols to represent ideas. Symbolism means use of different symbols to represent ideas, and riddled means hidden meanings. There were a lot of hidden meanings in the story, and Golding, after the success of this novel, the stone was set, and he wrote many successful novels after this, in which he examined, or in which he talked about man's internal struggle, means how man struggled between what was right and what is wrong, what is good and what is evil. Okay, so all his stories were based upon this thought. Okay. Let us begin the chapter. In the midst of a raging war, an airplane evacuating a group of schoolboys from Britain was shot down, and it crashed in a thick tropical jungle on an uninhabited island. So, midst means middle, midst, middle of a raging war. Raging means furious war, continuous war with great, something which continues with great force is called raging. So furious war. In the middle of a furious war, an airplane which was trying to rescue a group of schoolboys from Britain, means England, was shot down. This plane had been shot down by the enemy. And where did it crash? It crashed in a tropical jungle. Tropical jungle, tropical means in an area which receives very heavy rainfall throughout the year, and hence these jungles come up. Tropical, tropical means an area with high rainfall, an area with high rainfall throughout the year. Uninhabited means unpopulated. There was no civilization. Scattered by the wreck, the surviving boys lost each other and couldn't find the pilot, who was most likely dead. So, most likely the pilot was not alive, he was dead. And these boys had miraculously survived the plane wreck. And since these boys had survived, but they were scattered all over the island. They must have got out of the plane somehow, and they must have walked in different directions. So, all these boys were scattered all over the island. A fair-haired boy lowered himself down some rocks towards a lagoon on a beach. So among them was a fair-haired boy. Fair-haired means his hair was of light color. You've seen that foreigners mostly have light-colored hair, not like us, dark hair. So the boy was fair-haired, lowered himself means he came down, climbed down some rocks towards a lagoon. Lagoon means an area of shallow water which is separated from the sea. Shallow water which does not have so much water, that is a lagoon. It has been separated, that area has been separated from the sea, and it is an area of shallow water. At the lagoon, he encountered another boy who was chubby, intellectual, and wore thick glasses. Encountered means met. Met. At the lagoon, he met another boy who was chubby, means plump. He was slightly chubby, plump, intellectual, intelligent looking, because he wore thick glasses, because he was wearing glasses. So this fair-haired boy assumed that this boy must be intellectual, very intelligent. The fair boy shook his head. This is an island. That's a reef out in the sea. Perhaps there aren't any grown-ups anywhere. So both of the boys started talking, because these were the only two boys who met each other. So they started talking. So the fair boy was shaking his head. He said, oh, we are Like there was no hope for us. There's no hope for us because there are no grown-ups on this island. How will we get out of this island? That's a reef out in the sea. Reef means a jagged rock. Jagged, 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 jagged rock, coral or sand above or below the surface of the sea. It is a kind of rock, coral or sand above or below the surface of the sea. So they both he started talking to the chubby boy and he said, I don't think there are any grown-ups anywhere on this island. The fat boy looked startled. Aren't there any grown-ups at all? Startled, surprised. He was surprised. He said, are you sure there are no grown-ups on this island? I don't think so. The fair boy said this solemnly. But then the delight of a realized ambition overcame him. He stood on his head and grinned at the fat boy. So this boy was really worried. The fat boy, he said, the plump boy, he said, are you sure there are no grown-ups on this island? He was very startled because they were not used to living without grown-ups. So the fair boy said, I don't think so. I don't see any grown-ups here. He said that seriously, but solemnly means seriously. He said these words are in a serious tone, but suddenly he looked very delighted and he grinned also at the fat boy. He laughed loudly looking at him. Why? Because of the realized ambition overcame him. What was the realized ambition? Many children have this thought in their minds that what if there were no adults in this world? We would be so free to do whatever we want. This is a hidden ambition among most children. They want that let the parents go somewhere, then we will enjoy, then we will do this, then we will take out this particular game, we will play this game on the mobile with adults. So there is a hidden ambition among all children that they wish that there were no adults. So this was his sudden delight. Suddenly he realized that he had always wanted to do this, wanted this world to be free of adults. So he was suddenly delighted to think about the fact that he was actually, this was his ambition being realized, that there were no adults around him. No grown-ups. The fat boy thought for a moment, then spoke again. But the fat boy is not liking the idea that there were no grown-ups all around. He's not liking it. What's your name? The plump boy is asking the fair-haired boy, what's your name? So the fair-haired boy replied, Ralph. So the name of the fair-haired boy was Ralph. Now we know. The fat boy waited to be asked his name in turn, but instead the fair boy called Ralph smiled vaguely. So when naturally when you are introducing each other, when the fat boy asked the fair haired boy his name, he was naturally expecting that he would also ask his name, but in return this boy only smiled vaguely, means not very clear what he wanted to say, but he just smiled vaguely. So there was no response. He did not ask him his name. Ralph did not speak further, so the fat boy was forced to continue. So the Ralph kept quiet, so this fat boy continued talking. I expect there's a lot more of us scattered about. You haven't seen any others, have you? We will need to find them and make a list of their names. We ought to have a meeting. So the fat boy continued talking. He was intelligent and he said that I believe, expect means I believe that there will be a lot of boys scattered all around this island because they were traveling on the same plane. So he thought that if I am alive, if Ralph is alive, there must be other boys also alive who must be scattered all over this island. Then he asked Ralph, have you seen anyone else? Have you met anyone else? So, and he also said, then we will need to find all of them and make a list of their names. We ought means we must have a meeting. The fat boy wiped his glasses means spectacles, and adjusted them on his button nose and continued. Button nose means his nose was in the form of a button. He adjusted his glasses over his nose like this and he continued talking. I don't care what they call me, he said in a secretive manner, so long as they don't call me what they used to call me at school. So, since Ralph did not ask the fat boy his name, so he is talking to himself and saying, I don't care what the other boys who are on this island, I don't care what they call me, so long as they don't call me by the name by which I was addressed in school. He was a fat boy, so maybe the children at his school were teasing him about that, and therefore he continued talking. He said, "I don't care the other boys, whoever are, whatever boys are here scattered all over this island. I don't care whatever name they call me by, as long as they don't call me by the name which I was called by at school." Ralph was faintly interested. Now Ralph was interested to know what his name was. What was that? The fat boy glanced over his shoulder, then leaned toward Ralph. He whispered, "They used to call me Piggy." So Ralph's curiosity was aroused when this boy, fat boy, said that I hope they don't call me by the name which I was called at school. So then Ralph was interested and he asked him, what was that name? So the fat boy glanced, means looked over his shoulder to see there was no one behind. And then leaning, he knew there was no one behind, but still he looked behind to, in a secretive kind of way to see that no one was behind him. And he then leaned towards Ralph. He came closer to Ralph and whispered in his ear that they used to call me Piggy. Ralph shrieked with laughter. He jumped up. Shrieked means shouted. He was so this thing extremely delighted or like excited to hear the name of this boy that he was laughing loudly and he was jumping also. Piggy, Piggy, Ralph, please. Piggy clasped his hands in apprehension. Clasped means held his hand tightly. Apprehension means some suspicion, if you have a doubt in your mind that maybe this boy is going to tell everybody my name. So he had this doubt that he was so happy to hear. He was also teasing me by calling me by the same name, Piggy, which I don't want anyone to use here. And he was in a little doubt that this boy, whom I have told my secret, he might tell the others also. I said I didn't want. Then he repeated that I told you that I don't want anyone to call me by that name. But Ralph continued calling him Piggy, Piggy. Piggy grinned reluctantly means unwillingly. So he was the only friend he had here. So he had to be with him. So although he did not want to laugh because Ralph was making fun of him, but still he unwillingly he started laughing. So long as you don't tell the others. Then he told him that, okay, you know my name, but please don't tell the others my name. Ralph hurried back into the forest and stood up and trotted along to the right till he came to the lagoon. So Ralph was in the mood to explore where he was. So he went back into the forest and trotted means walked along till he came to the lagoon. He had seen the lagoon before, so he went back to the lagoon. There was a long, deep pool in the beach with a high ledge of pink granite at the further end. Ledge here means a narrow, protruding piece of rock, a rock which protrudes. Okay. So this was made of pink granite, is a kind of rock, pink colored rock at the further end. Ralph inspected the whole 30 yards of the pool carefully and then plunged in. First, Ralph examined the entire pool, which was 30 yards. Okay. The entire pool measurement was 30 yards, and Ralph inspected the entire pool. And why was he inspecting it? To see that there was no danger inside the pool. And then he jumped into the pool. The water was warmer than his blood, and he felt like he was swimming in a huge bath. So the water of the pool was very warm, and he felt like he was taking a bath, taking a dip in a huge kind of bath. Piggy appeared again, sat on the rocky ledge, and watched Ralph enviously. So Piggy also followed him. He had nowhere else to go, so he followed Ralph. And then he sat on the rocky ledge, the rock of pink granite. He sat there and kept on looking at Ralph enviously, means jealously, feeling jealous. He was feeling jealous of Ralph because he was swimming. Ralph did a surface dive. So Ralph dived into the water and swam underwater with his eyes open. The sandy edge of the pool loomed up like a hillside. Loomed means came into view. So the sandy edge of this pool looked to him while he was swimming, diving, and going underwater. The the sandy edge of the pool was looking like that. It was looking like a hillside that he was swimming beside a hill. He turned over, holding his nose, and a golden light danced and shattered just over his face. So He was enjoying his swim in the pool. He was turning over, he was holding his nose, and the sunlight was falling on him. And the golden light of the sun was like as if it was dancing all over his face. Piggy tiptoed down the sandy side of the pool and sat there up to his neck in water, smiling proudly at Ralph. So now, Piggy, what did he do? He got up and he went to the most shallow side of the pool where it was only sand. There was only little water and all sand. So what did he do? He sat down inside that shallow part of the pool, up to his neck here, only up to his neck, and his face was above the water. And he was looking at Ralph proudly. He was admiring him, the way he was swimming. Ralph, he was admiring. He was smiling proudly, means he was admiring the way Ralph was swimming. Aren't you going to swim? So Ralph asked him that, why are you not swimming? Piggy shook his head. Piggy said, no, I'm not going to swim. I can't swim. I wasn't allowed. My asthma. So Piggy started explaining to Ralph that why he couldn't swim. He couldn't swim because he wasn't allowed to swim because he had this problem, breathing problem, which is a disease called asthma, where you have, if you go under, if you have like pollution in the air also, you have difficulty in breathing. So there is no question of swimming and going underwater if you have asthma, because you will find difficult to breathe. Swimming is all about controlling your breath. So he said, I wasn't allowed to swim because I have asthma. Ralph laughed loudly. Piggy bore this with the sort of humble patience. You can't half swim well. So Ralph started laughing loudly. He started laughing loudly because he thought that Piggy didn't know how to swim. So this was a boy who was very, like, he loved making fun of others. He did not mind making fun of others. Okay. Piggy bore. Bore means he tolerated. Piggy was tolerating all this with patience. Why? Because he knew that he was alone on this island and he needed some company. Hmm? So he was tolerating Ralph's laughter, his mocking, fun, making fun of him. He was tolerating all this. And then Ralph told him that you can't half swim well. That means I know that you can't swim well as me. That is why you are not swimming. Ralph paddled backwards down the slope, immersed his mouth and blew a jet of water into the air. Then he lifted his chin and spoke. So Ralph was enjoying his swim. He paddled, he went backwards, then he immersed his mouth inside the water, then he blew a jet of water from his mouth, took out water from his mouth into the air. Then he again started speaking. I could swim when I was 5. Daddy taught me. He's a commander in the Navy. When he gets leave, he'll come and rescue us. What's your father? So Ralph told him that he had learned swimming when he was 5 years old because his father had taught him. Since his father was a commander in the Navy, and you know that in the Navy they must have lived close to the seashore all the time. So it was very easy for him to learn swimming, and his father had taught him swimming when he was 5. Then he said that when my father gets leave, he will surely come here to rescue us, to save us from this place, to get us out of this place. And then he also asked Piggy, "What is your father?" That means my father is a commander in the Navy. What does your father do? Piggy flushed suddenly. Flushed means turn red as a result of a strong emotion. Turn red as a result of a strong emotion. So his face was red with embarrassment as if he had asked something which he was not prepared to answer. My dad's dead, he said quickly, and my mum. Okay. So maybe his father and mother both were not alive, and then he took off his glasses and looked vainly for something with which to clean them. Vainly means with no effect. There was nothing with which to clean his glasses. So he was looking for something to clean his glasses, maybe because there were tears in his eyes when he was asked, "What's your father?" And he said, "My father's dead, and my mum." So this sentence is not complete. So we don't know where his mother is. I used to live with my auntie. She kept a candy store. I used to get ever so many candies. When will your dad rescue us? So he explained to Ralph that my father is dead, and Ralph interrupted, and I think he did not want to complete the sentence where his mother was. And he said, instead, he told Ralph that I lived with my aunt. My aunt had a candy store. Candy, you all know, sweets, selling sweets. And I used to get a lot of candies when I was small. And then he asked Ralph again, when will your dad come and rescue us? Soon as he can. That means as soon as he is able to, he will come. Piggy rose, dripping from the water, and stood. So he was also immersed in water. So when he stood up, the water dripped from his body, cleaning his glasses with a sock. So with his socks, he cleaned his glasses again. Maybe again there were his eyes must have been moist talking about his parents. So he just wiped his glasses with a sock. How does he know we are here? Ralph floated around for a while, then pulled himself out of the water and stood facing Piggy. So naturally, the first question which came to Piggy's mind, because he was very intelligent and alert, he asked Ralph, "How will your father, come to know that we are here?" "Because they tell him at the airport," exclaimed Ralph in a loud voice. So Ralph told Piggy that at the airport, people will tell him that we were on this plane, and then he will come to know. Piggy shook his head, put on his glasses, and looked at Ralph. "Not them. Didn't you hear what the pilot said about the atom bomb? They are all dead. Nobody knows we are here." So that means the pilot must have told them while they were in the flight that something about an atom bomb. So Piggy said, "The airport people cannot inform your father because there must have been an atom bomb attack at the airport, and they are all dead. They cannot tell your father where you are. Nobody knows where we are." So this was how Piggy concluded that it is impossible for your father to know where we are and come and rescue us, because I remember the pilot telling us when the plane may be about to crash, and the pilot must have told them that there has been an atom bomb attack or something. So that is not very clear, but it is clear that Piggy reminded him, "Don't you remember that the pilot had told us that there has been an incident with an atom bomb? Don't you remember?" His lips trembled and the spectacles were dimmed with mist. Again, his lips were shaking, trembling while he was saying this. And again, his glasses were filled with mist. When you cry and the glasses become misty, you can't see clearly because of the moisture on your glass. "So we may stay here till we die." So Piggy concluded that nobody knows that we are here, and nobody will ever come to know that we are dead or alive also. Okay, so we may continue to live here for as long as we don't die. We may still live on this island only. "Get my clothes," muttered Ralph. So Ralph dismissed everything. He was very confident that he will be saved. He said, "Just get my clothes." Muttered means speak in a low voice. Piggy brought the clothes under his arms, and Ralph sat carefully on a fallen trunk near the little cliff that fronted the lagoon. So Piggy brought Ralph's clothes, and both of them sat on a tree trunk which had fallen near the cliff. Cliff means a steep rock, fronted means facing the lagoon. Okay, so there was a tree trunk which had fallen near the little cliff, and the cliff was facing the lagoon. Fronted means facing the lagoon, and the tangled reflections of the pool quivered over him. Tangled means matted, twisted together. So when you see your reflection, if the sea is in front of you, there is water in front of you, you can see your reflection in the water, but the water keeps moving. So the reflection was not a stable reflection, but a twisted reflection. Okay, tangled, matted reflection. Quivered means trembled. So the reflection of the water, moving water, was all over his face. Ralph's face. Ralph spotted something creamy that lay among the ferny weeds towards the lagoon. Spotted means he found. Suddenly, Ralph looked at something which was a little creamy, and that was lying where among the ferns, weeds. Weeds are sea plants, plants which are found along the seashore. So he found something, he saw something lying there towards the lagoon, a stone. So the fat boy said, "A stone." "No, a shell." Okay. No, Ralph said a stone, and Piggy said, "No, it is a shell." Suddenly, Piggy bubbled with excitement. Bubbled means he couldn't suppress his feelings. He was bubbling with excitement. "Right, it's a shell." Right means that's right. S right, that is written S apostrophe right, means that's right. It's a shell. I have seen one like that before, hung on the back wall of a friend's house. A conch, he called it. He used to blow it, and then his mum would come. It's ever so valuable. So let me correct myself. A stone, Piggy said this. No, a shell, Ralph said this. Then again, Piggy said, that's right, it's a shell. Okay, so a stone, this was said by Piggy. No, a shell, this was said by Ralph. So then Piggy agreed with him. He said, that's right, I have seen something like this before, hanging on the back wall of a friend's house. It is called a conch. All of you know a conch is blown in a temple. Whenever we have a puja or an aarti in a temple, a conch is blown. That is what they saw. So he said, this is a conch, and he used to blow into it, and it would make a sound, and then his mum would come. If he blew into that conch, his mum would hear the sound and he would come. It's ever so valuable. He said it's very valuable, it's very precious. Ralph tried to retrieve the shell by pushing it out of the weeds with a stem, and then began to poke about in the water. Piggy leaned dangerously. Careful, you'll break it. Be quiet. So Ralph tried to retrieve, means extract or get or bring the shell out of the weeds. And how did he do it? He used a stem, and then he began to poke, means prod or jab at it with something. With the stem, he was poking at the shell. And Piggy also was leaning dangerously inside the water, and he said, careful, you're going to break it. And then Ralph told him, be quiet. Ralph spoke absent-mindedly he was speaking. He used one hand as a support and pressed down with the other till the shell rose, dripping, and Piggy could make a grab. So what he did was he used one hand for support, and with the other hand he kept on pressing down. And then suddenly the shell, the conch, it rose out of the water, and Piggy was able to grab it. Grab it means pick it up, seize it. Okay. Now the shell was no longer a thing seen but not to be touched. So now the shell was in their hands. So it was no longer a thing which can only be seen from far, but it was a thing which they could really touch and feel it. Ralph took the shell from Piggy, and a little water ran down his arm. So Ralph, what he did was he took the shell from Piggy, and why did a little water fall down, run down his arm? Because inside the shell there was water, and when he took the conch from Piggy's hand, a little water ran down his arm from the shell. In color, the shell was deep cream, touched here and there with fading pink. So the color of the shell was cream, and here and there was a shade of fading pink, not very bright pink, but light pink patches were there here and there, and was covered with a delicate embossed pattern. So the conch had a very delicate pattern also on it. Pattern, there was some design on the shell which was embossed on it. Okay, some decoration, some kind of pattern was there on that shell. Ralph shook sand out of the deep tube. So since the shell was inside the sea, so some sand had also gone inside it. So Ralph was shaking out the sand from inside the tube of the shell. The conch has a tube-like thing inside, so he was shaking the sand out of it. Piggy paused for breath and stroked the glistening thing that lay in Ralph's hands. So Piggy also, he was breathless. He was so breathless. Why? Because he had asthma, remember? And all this excitement was making him breathless. And he stroked means he lightly, gently put his hand on that glistening thing, shining shell that lay in Ralph's hands. That was now in Ralph's hand. He was stroking it. He was gently touching it. Ralph looked up. We can use this to call the others. Have a meeting. They'll come when they hear us. He beamed at Ralph. Ralph pushed back his fair hair. How did your friend blow the conch? So Ralph had an idea. He said that we can use this to call the others. If there are some other boys on this island, we can just blow this conch, and we can call them and have a meeting with them. They will come here if they hear us. So he beamed. Piggy was beaming with happiness. He was very delighted to hear this, that yes, this was a very good idea. So Ralph said, How did you asked him, how did your friend blow the conch? How to blow this? So he kind of spat, said Piggy. He said that it was something like spitting. You know what a spit is? He said it was kind of spitting. He used to spit or blow into it, something like that. My auntie wouldn't let me blow on account of my asthma. Again, he repeated that he had asthma and therefore anything which required breath, he was unable to do so. Okay. So he had difficulty to breathe, and he said, therefore, my aunt would never allow me to blow a conch also because it requires breath. And to blow a conch, you have to have a lot of deep breath coming out deep from inside. Okay. He said, you blow from down here. Piggy laid a hand on his stomach. You try, Ralph, you'll call the others. Okay. So he said, he pointed out to him that I know from where to blow this shell. Therefore, from here you have to blow. He pointed out to the place where he should blow from. So Piggy laid a hand on his stomach. You try, Ralph. You'll call the others. He said to Ralph that I'm sure you'll be able to blow the conch and call the others. Doubtfully, Ralph laid the small end of the shell against his mouth and blew, but the shell remained silent. So first, on the first attempt, Ralph was also very doubtful that he would be able to blow the conch because he had never done it, and doubtfully he put the small end. There is a small hole on on the shell if you want to blow it. So he doubtfully put the small end of the shell against his mouth and he tried to blow inside it, but there was no noise because if you blow a shell for the first time, you will not be able to because you don't know the technique. Okay. He kind of spat. Then Piggy tried to explain to Ralph that you have to kind of spit to make it blow. Ralph pursed his lips and blew into the shell, which emitted a funny noise. So, again, I'm telling you that if you have never blown a conch, if you don't know the technique, then it will make a lot of funny sounds in the beginning. This amused both boys so much that Ralph went on for some minutes between bouts of laughter. So these funny sounds which came out from the conch were really amusing the boys. They were very funny sounds, and therefore both the boys were very amused, and they kept on laughing. Bouts of laughter means they had fits of laughter. They kept on laughing. They kept on blowing inside, and these funny noises came out, and they had both of them were enjoying and laughing. Hearing the strange sounds which are coming out of the conch. Okay, so we will we will do here up till here today, and we will continue on Wednesday after this. Okay, thank you.